Welcome to the Meditation Podcast. You can find all our episodes on meditationpodcast.org. My guest today is a celebrated self-development teacher and spiritual guide known for her ability to merge Eastern and Western philosophies into actionable wisdom. Her journey from being a successful career in international business to a decade-long spiritual exploration in India and Nepal under the tutelage of Tibetan lamas, including the Dalai Lama, has equipped her with a unique blend of practical and profound insights. She's the author of 9 books. I know that a lot of them are in Spanish, but her latest book, The 7 Levels of Wisdom, is a testament to her life's work and dedication. She's a TEDx speaker, frequent Spanish national TV guest, and international keynote speaker. From Madrid in Spain, Mónica Esgueva. Did I pronounce it properly?
It was good enough, yes.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Roy.
So, I mean, there's a lot we can delve into here, but I just want to kind of get to know you a little bit more. One, kind of how you went from kind of, I suppose, corporate into this path. And yeah, I know you've lived in a few different places as well, so I'd like to kind of touch on that as well.
But I guess I was born very spiritual. I was very aware of the big questions since I was a child. I was asking my parents, I used to ask them, why are we here? What is the purpose of life? What is the meaning of life? And of course, they couldn't find a right or a good answer. And I even had the feeling that I was not coming from Earth. You know, I was always looking at the stars and saying, that is my home. And I remember once I asked my father, what do I come from? And he said, well, we picked you up from under the bridge. You were living with some gypsies. And of course, they couldn't understand the thing. And I was crying because like, okay, you don't get it. So I started a spiritual quest very early on. I started with the Catholic Church. And of course, after a while, I realized that they were not providing good answers either, and they were not following Jesus' message, really. So when I was 14, 15, I was reading everything I could find on spirituality, transcendence, and understanding the nature of the mind and the nature of reality. So I started really early. But then I tried to fit in. So I studied economics, and I finished a master's degree. I married early, and then I went to live first in London for a little while, and then in Paris, in Fontainebleau and Paris in France. And I was working for an international business school. I had a very good job, a very good material life. I was living in one of the best neighborhoods in Paris. I was having a good social life, good holidays, like everything most people aspire to in this earth. On this earth, and yet I was not fulfilled. I felt deeply unfulfilled. So one day I decided to go to the north of India and Dharamsala, which is at the feet of the Himalayas, and I wanted to do some research on the Tibetans on exile, because I thought that they are going through a lot of difficulties here. I went there for 3 weeks, and then I missed my flight home. So I ended up staying for 3 months. I studied. This is when I started to study really with the Tibetan lamas and receiving teachings from the Dalai Lama. And I realized that they had clues that I had been looking for all my life. They really, for them, it was very important to work on the mind, to work on the heart, and to really focus on dissolving the ego to be able to get enlightened. And that was where I had been looking for all my life. So after those 3 months, I went back home, back to Paris, and I realized I could not go on with my former life. So within 6 months, I left my house, my home there, my plans, my future, everything I owned, and I divorced. I got a divorce as well. And I went back to my parents' home, with anything that I could fit in my car. And the only thing I knew is I didn't want to waste my life. I didn't know how to earn a living, but I didn't know how to waste my life. I didn't know how to. I did not want to waste my life, so I started a different search, a different quest. And the other thing I was sure of was that I wanted to be of benefit to the world, and I had to find how. So this is when I started getting some good training on the mind, on psychology, on mindfulness, on neuroscience, mainly in the US. And then I continued for 10 years. I continued going to Nepal and India and studied with the Tibetan lamas for 10 years. Every time I will go there, I will stay for 2 or 3 months. And I did that for 10 years. And slowly, I started building a new life.
Excellent. And did you notice, I mean, obviously, your own journey, you kind of realized your cup wasn't full, even though everybody thinks that that's success. And when you're going to like Nepal and India, and basically they have nothing like the West have, but you can see they're happier.
Yes. Because I think here we tend to think in our society that happiness has anything to do with having a lot of things and achieving our goals. And of course, those goals keep moving because this is what people don't realize is like, okay, my next goal is going to give me what I am looking for. And then you climb the Everest. And okay, you feel satisfied for what? A few hours, a few days. And then after that, it's okay, I need to go for the next mountain to climb because it's not a lasting satisfaction, So we have to change that kind of mindset because what we are really looking for is inner peace. We just disguise it with materiality and superficiality. And also that we want to portray an image to others to make ourselves feel good about it. But deep inside, we are not feeling this good. And I have seen that. I mean, I have been working with all sorts of people, helping them in their transformation, coaching them for 15, 16 years now. And people from all walks of life, including millionaires, celebrities, or even business leaders. And they all suffer from the same deep-seated anxiety because there's always more to get. And it's also, you can add also the fear of losing what you already got. So it's a never-ending career, a never-ending race, because there's never a place where you can sit and say, okay, now I can relax because I have all the security I'm looking for. And now I can enjoy life and I can start working on deeper issues. That time never arrives. So we're just fooling ourselves and wasting our time in the meantime.
And most people are kind of keeping up with the Joneses as well, like, because they see the newer car, the bigger house, they go on a fancy trip and they want to then kind of outbid them, and it gets into a spiral of just trying to, I suppose, look like the Instagram thing where you have the perfect light and in a life, inside the house, it's just miserable.
It is because at the end of the day, there's not one reality out there. There are 8 billion realities. Because what we go through is whatever movie we construct in our minds. And our movies tend to be quite awful. They are full of jealousy and hatred and resentment and dissatisfaction, frustration, sorts of things. Some of those inner movies, I think they will even earn like awards in some festivals. Because we are the screenwriter, we are the director, we are the protagonist of those movies. And the same way you go to the cinema and you see the projection of the movie and it's so vivid and it looks so real that you get into it and you are swept away with whatever is going on and you feel a lot of feelings and you think it's real. You forget that you are in the cinema. It's the same thing with our minds. Everything is going on. It gets projected in our minds, but we don't realize it. We think it's the real world. So once you know that, and of course you have to be, it's not only knowing it intellectually, you need to be very aware of everything that is going on in your mind. And instead of just reacting in an automatic fashion, you have to stop yourself and say, okay, do I need to react like a puppet, or can I choose at every single moment what I think, what I feel, and how I act? And we can choose that, and we can change our lives. But of course, it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of mindfulness to be there, here in the present, instead of just ruminating something from the past and fearing something from the future. This is the predicament we are all in,
And you mentioned, like, even if you're in the movie or watching it at television, but what I've noticed, and with today, like with the high definition, you can actually, I don't know if it's just me, and I've taught my son this, but we can see the green screen, and you can no longer feel engaged, because sometimes you just lose yourself. And so we go to the cinema more because it doesn't happen like that. And people just, and on, like, the reason I'm kind of touching on that is because I believe that I see people, they go, one, they're either watching the negativity of the news, and the other is they're watching horrors and stuff like that. And I don't think the brain knows. And I think you go down the wrong path when you are it's all kind of relevant to what you're looking at and watching and surrounding.
Exactly. And also the brain is not able to distinguish with something that is happening right now as something that you are imagining vividly. So that's why we harm ourselves without being aware of it. Because if we think about something so intently, like sometimes, like a lot of people fear the future, and they have all those images that are so realistic in their minds, as if it were happening right here, right now. And they don't realize that for the brain it's the same thing. So they are putting themselves under a lot of pressure needlessly. So it's like we have to take charge of our minds, and instead of projecting everything outside, there's a lot of work to be done inside. And that's the hardest part, because we don't like it. We prefer to be like children that are told what to do, how to think, what to dress, what to do with their lives, what to believe, instead of taking charge and saying, okay, this is my responsibility, and I need to do my work. And my work is inner work, more than anything, because then the outer world will be a reflection of what is inside of me. But it's so much easier to say, okay, I blame you. I blame my circumstances. I blame my upbringing. I blame the world. Have you look at the world, the state of the world? Well, what can I do? And we just feel victims, and then we are entrapped, because there's no way out when you feel a victim.
I think, unfortunately, the education system has kind of been infiltrated for over 100 years to stop people thinking and make them complain to get into the corporation and stuff like that. And then if you are kind of breaking the norm, you're the bad boy, and they push you to the side, and they kind of, call in the parents and everything. And then hence you're afraid to stand anymore, and you just do what you're told. When you went to, like, Nepal, you've been to a lot of different places. How was your own kind of energy fields connecting with that? Because I've kind of, I've traveled a lot around, and there's some places that resonated. But did you feel it different when you were in different parts of the world?
Oh, yeah. Yes, of course. I mean, for example, I spent 6 months living in Tanzania, collaborating as a volunteer in an orphanage and at the school, teaching at the school. And it was a very different vibe there, because Africa has nothing to do with the West world. But I try to go, wherever I go, I try to go with a humble vision. And instead of feel entitled and do the things as I used to do them, or I do them here, I try to adapt to whatever they do there. So one of the things I did is, okay, I promised myself okay, I'm going to take the bus with them. And of course, I was the only white one all the time, and what they call Muzungu in Swahili. And I will stand out, of course, in the crowd, and we were just squeezing in like sardines. And I went through all that because I thought, this is a humbling experience, and I want to go through it as they are. Of course, it's not the same life, but still, I want to be one of them. And I wanted to, I don't think I don't know. We give a little thing there, but mostly you take away a lot of lessons, because you see how they think, you see how they live, you see the children, those children at the orphanage. I have never seen children with such a predicament, where you are born in Africa, you are abandoned when you are born, and then you don't even have a family to rely on. And yet those children were the happiest I have ever seen, ever. So that's also a lesson to take away with you is, okay, do I have reasons to complain? I have everything and more. Some people in this world will never have what I have now. But this is a question of, where do you focus? Do you focus on what you don't have? You focus on what you want to achieve and you haven't achieved? Or you focus on being grateful for so many blessings that we are enjoying right here, right now? We are very fortunate, and most of the times we take it for granted. I mean, you go open the faucets and you can have a hot shower for as long as you want here in the West. I remember the showers I had to take were cold to start with, and it was just a bucket, and I will have to shower and wash my hair and everything with that. So, and this is a small detail, but so many things we take for granted, we shouldn't. There's one thing I always recommend to my clients, and I do it myself, is take a little notebook, put it in your, take it with you at night or whatever, and write down 3 things you are grateful for each day. And for a few weeks, try to make it different, not focusing on the same things. So that way you will realize that there's so many things that pass unobserved, and they are also a blessing for us. Even going out, and I'm seeing the sunlight here in Madrid right now. It's like, okay, this is just a blessing. There are so many countries where they don't even have that. Or I can walk, and so many people don't have that leisure in so many things. And when you look at that, when you focus on what is positive in your life, then something happens within you. And you see that there's so many things that we can enjoy and we can expand, instead of thinking, okay, this is all going wrong in my life, so I keep shrinking and shrinking. So I think gratitude is one of the things, or one of my takeaways from my experience in Africa particularly.
Well, the thing is, like, you can't experience 2 emotions. So when you're concentrating on what you're grateful for, it's not the lack or how bad my life is or where things have went. And just like, because obviously doing something like that, it's very fulfilling. And there's millions, probably billions of people, they're chugging through life and they're just very depressed. I mean, depression, anxiety, and that it's just going through the roof. But what I found is, when somebody's got a bigger mission than themselves, when they're actually helping others, like what you had done there now, and you just you try to make the world a better place, so it no longer becomes about you, then you're looking at the gratefulness in reality.
Absolutely. I think this is what the liberation of human beings starts with, that. When you realize the oneness of everything, all human beings, but it's also all sentient beings, is the planet, is the forest, is the animals, is the trees. We are all interconnected. We are closely intertwined. So when everything is about me and my things, this is where creates anxiety and depression, as you were saying. and fear, because it's like, okay, I cannot have enough to defend myself. And I always think that I need to attack in order to be able to defend myself. And you see people as potential competitors and enemies. We have been raised that way. And you realize when you break that, you realize that this is not true. It's all brainwashing. And it's also what we perceive from an skewed mindset, an skewed and biased filter that is our ego. But when you are able to go beyond that, when you are able to connect with how can I benefit the world, then it's no longer about you. It doesn't mean that you will not be taken into account, but you develop compassion for other people's suffering. And you develop compassion for your own suffering as well. You are included in that compassion, but it expands. And with that expansion, it comes also an expansion of your happiness, of your contentment, or your well-being in general. So I think it's worth to try.
When you met the Dalai Lama, like, what was the experience? Can you remember the very first time, what you felt?
It was very intense. That first time was very intense because I was with a lot of Tibetans and some Westerners, but not many. And he was I attended his classes for, at that time, I think it was 4 or 5 days in a row. And everything, of course, his English is not very good. So he was speaking in Tibetan, and most of the audience was Tibetan anyway. He was speaking in Tibetan, and we had an English translator. And I remember at that time, I didn't know much about Buddhism. So he was doing some sort of initiation. And I could understand the translation, but he was using a lot of imaginary and a lot of deities that you had to imagine that I didn't know of at that time. It was kind of complicated. So I couldn't follow it really. But what happened to me is as he was speaking, I started entering a peak experience. And all of a sudden I was connected with love and compassion for everyone, and started crying. And I was in the middle of a lot of people. So I felt a little bit ashamed and awkward. And then he will stop the initiation because he was doing some rituals or whatever, and my experience will stop. And then he will continue whatever he was doing, and then my experience will just start again. So this went on for an hour, and I had never felt anything like that before. I have, after that, I have gone through many other big experiences or mystical experiences, but that was my first one ever. And it really created an impression on me because all I could think is like, what kind of being is he that he's able to provoke that kind of experience in me without knowing him at all, or even understanding what he's trying to convey.
And like, I see, for those that are actually watching, because it's on Spotify, but YouTube and Rumble, your background is actually beautiful. So there's like the word love, and there's like stones and a lovely light, and like a Buddha kind of, like, that's kind of like, I suppose people say their little sacred temple and stuff like that. How important is it to have a kind of place like that, or an area that you just kind of feel, I suppose it's a treasure to us, that when we're there, we feel in the zone?
I think for me, my whole house is like that. So I try to only have, it's kind of minimalistic, but it does have things, but I try to have everything in harmony. I try to have an environment, at least in my home, I can control that is positive, that it has positive vibes. I have a lot of pictures hanging from my many trips around the world, and all of them, when I look at them, it triggers something positive in me, some good memory, some inspiration. And it's the same thing with every object in my life and in my house. It's like, okay, here's a candle, here is a plant, here is a light, here is those books that I cherish. So there's nothing that is not positive and will not be inspiring for me in my home. So that way, when I am home, it's like a heaven of protection and inner peace, because everywhere you look is pleasant, is beautiful. And I think that's how I try to live my life. This is at home, and I try to do the same thing with my interactions with people. It's like I don't spend time with people that are not on a positive vibe. Sometimes you cannot escape from it. I don't know, it's a work connection or whatever, but I try to minimize that, because it's like life is too short, and I don't want to spend them with environments or situations or people that are not constructive, they are not cooperative. And I do respect everyone. I think we are in a free world, and I think one of the main important things happening in our planet is that we have free will. So I do respect free will completely. We have to choose what we want for our lives. But then if what you do has consequences on my life, then I'm going to set boundaries, and I'm not going to interact with you as much as I could have if you were different. So yeah, I think it's a question of taking care of yourself and being cordial and respectful to everyone, and then try to give a hand to those that are in need and want that help. And if not, just wish them the best and pray for them, because at some point they will also realize that it's best to be on a positive vibe and try to be cooperative with each other at the very least.
I think a lot of people are afraid to do that. That's something that I kind of over the years realized, like, is this person giving me energy or taking my energy? And you just start reducing it, and slowly, sometimes, yeah, like when it's family and things like that. I mean, I'm lucky, I've got a fantastic family, but I've seen other people that their family is the problem, and you can't cut the ties, but you can limit it. And, you know, like I've even noticed it with some, like just in relationships or whatever, it's okay for 2 hours when you go there for the dinner and stuff, but after that, then it starts going down there. So then you just kind of understand, okay, let's go there for 2 hours and then get away from it. So there's times you can't walk away, but what you find is your energy levels are just getting better and better. And instead of thinking you're hurting somebody, because, you know, we're always trying to please, but I have never regretted it. I've never regretted cutting people out of my life. I've never, when you make a decision for this, because you have to kind of serve yourself first. And when you do that, you can actually serve a lot more.
Yes, and in a way is that you cannot give away what you don't have yourself. So if you're with people that take away and take away and take away, you have nothing to give anyway. So if we are here to benefit others, and I think we do, and I think we are here for that, then we have to take care, be responsible for our own surroundings and our own inner self. Is both. So saying, okay, this is my family, therefore, and they are asking me to be with them all the time, and they're toxic people, it's not going to be of benefit to anyone involved, because they want to be saved, and I am not here to save anyone. I am here, we are all here to give a hand to our fellow humans, but those fellow humans need to be in need of that hand and need to be able to receive the hand. So many people need help, but they don't want to be helped. So this is one of the things that I do when people come to me to be coached in the transformation. It's like, okay, are you willing to work on yourself? Or you want like an easy solution and like a pill or something that is with immediate results, but you are not willing to work hard on yourself. Well, if you're not, maybe you have not suffered enough. I think some people need to hit rock bottom before they are willing to be helped and to do what it requires. I think it's so easy just to complain and blame others and not do what you have to do. And we have to get out of that sort of behavior. It's very childish, and we have to mature. And this is how it works. You cannot help someone that is not willing to be helped.
I mean, I've seen a lot of that where, like people they're just constantly blaming the family, blaming every single person that they're getting on. But it's more the ego is getting in the way. They think they're perfect and they look at the world from their light. And it's, I suppose, what's the best way to kind of, when somebody doesn't see it, they just blame everybody. Like, because when you want to help somebody, but they're so sensitive that you can't, how do you actually get in there? And like, how can you heal somebody that doesn't kind of realize they're broken? They're looking at everyone else thinking, oh, it's my parents, it's my business partner, it's this.
Well, I don't think there's much hope for those people unless there's something in them that changes, and most of the times they need to go through a big crisis. As I was saying, they need to hit rock bottom. If you don't go through a crisis, you are comfortable in your brokenness. You are so used to life as it is that you don't think there's a way out, or you think it's too much work. So, okay, when I am a victim or I feel a victim, I can still be here, blame others, and feel good about myself, because it's like, okay, it's not my fault. So, it's their fault. I have a lot of negativity and I'm feeding that negativity, but it's them, it's not me. So it's very easy to get entrapped in that situation. And in my experience, you cannot help people when they are in that sort of mindset, because they have invested themselves so much in feeling that way that they are not going to leave that position willingly. They will fight for it before you can help them. So I think we have to be very honest with ourselves and realize that we are not here to save anyone. So once you realize that, you can respect every people's choices. Every person's choices is worth of respect, because not everyone has come here to learn and to develop very quickly. Some people have come to have some experiences that they will take away with them when they die, and they will work on them in the next life. It's not for this life. So, of course, seeing it from our point of view, and especially if these are people that we care for, it's very hard to let it go and let them go. But they have every right to choose their pace of evolution. It's not up to us to choose it. So we have to be very respectful, humble, and understand that everything is perfect the way it is, even when it doesn't look like that.
Beautiful, beautiful. So with kind of continuous development, because I was looking at all the different things you've done, like you've kind of done the coaching with NLP, leadership with INSEAD in France, mindfulness at the UCLA, psychology and neuroscience at MIT, and at King's College London, and you did hypnosis at the NLP Center of New York. I mean, that's impressive, all these different things at institutions that people would actually be aware of. So I suppose your whole journey is like just to kind of understand life better and how you can connect with people. Is that your main kind of goal from when you kind of start getting into this?
Well, I got the training. I was more than anything interested in understanding the mind from the Western point of view and from the Eastern point of view, because I feel that I am sort of a bridge between the two worlds. And I needed to understand our inner self, our mind, but also our emotional structure, because I think we need to work on that, and we need to transform our minds and our emotional structures to be able to transcend them, because otherwise we're still trapped by the ego. The ego wins, the ego desires, the ego plots, the ego's wishes, and trying to grasp at everything. The ego wants to control, and that's our mind. And then we feel awful about ourselves, and we don't know why. So I needed to have that kind of framework to be able to go to the next step. So what I feel is my mission here in this life is to understand that first, and then also to put it into practice, because I try to teach, to preach what I do myself. And I always try to do it first to see if it works. And when it works, then I teach it. But I could say that I would like to help people to go from becoming achievers, which is the maximum level we in our society have been indoctrinated into becoming, to change that into a different kind of goal in our lives. And I think our goal should be ultimately self-transcendence, to realize that we are one big family and feel that kinship with everyone, and start feeling that oneness with everything and everyone. Because when we do that, our consciousness, our individual consciousness changes, gets transformed, and this is how we can transform the world. It's not by changing the politicians or changing the institutions or getting different people on power, or in the banks, or in the corporations, or in the media, or in the pharma. It's much more than that. It's changing our mindset. It's changing our consciousness. It's becoming wiser people and more compassionate. This is how we can change the world. But this is an individual work. So I work with individuals to be able to try to have a positive impact in the world.
Because a lot of people, they think there's no hope for humanity. They think it's we're doomed and everything. But when I see lots of people are actually going into corporations, and you've worked for corporations as well, like when they're kind of bringing in people like that, because even if it's middle level, because sometimes they're kind of doing these things to keep them, a lot of these, there's a percentage of them eventually become the board members, and they can then have massive impact on the company. So like it is happening, but most people, they don't see it.
No, because it goes from the bottom up, but we have to make a lot of changes in our lives first. And I think it's very easy to say, well, it's just people in power that they are corrupt. The ones corrupted are them, and it's not like that, because we participate in our small environment. If we have ill will towards others, if we have animosity, we have a hostility, if we don't treat others well, if we don't think about others well, if we don't speak in a kind way, if we don't act in a kind way, so we are the ones to blame as well. They are just a reflection of ourselves. So the work starts and ends with us, with ourselves. And then, yes, of course, we can hope for a change in the world, but it's too easy to just point at others and say, those are the ones to blame. It's not like that. And as I said, the change we need here and now is a change of consciousness. And this is much deeper and goes much deeper than we think. And I have reason to be hopeful, because I do see people that are entering into this kind of world, into this kind of, let's say, occupations, for one. More people want to be healers, coaches, and therapists, for example. More and more people are doing and entering, even if it is with the small steps, into mindfulness, into yoga. So we see more people interested in those things, in those topics. And then hopefully they will go a step further, which is, okay, now I'm going to work on things that are deeper and more expansive. And I'm able to think for myself, to become a sovereign being, and question everything I have been taught and everything authorities say. And I start not following blindly whatever experts are ordering, because it's like things are mandatory. No, things are not mandatory. I can't choose. So by becoming sovereign beings, we also grow up, and we stop having infantile behaviors. So it's a mix of things. I would say it's getting to be sovereign beings, and then getting to evolve in our minds, in our hearts, and working on dissolving the ego. Those, for me, will be like the main pillars for the future society.
That's like what I find myself through my own journey. It was like I kind of went down with the sovereignty, understanding all this kind of, you no longer fear people. And when you're facing them, I mean, I've stood up to judges, I've stood up to detectives and everything. They put their head down, because a lot of people give them the power. They don't realize you've got power within. And like, I mean, most people wouldn't be aware of this, but there was a referendum in Ireland just recently, and every political party, we've got left and right, are together in the Green Party, and they're just like every other around the world are terrible, and they were all saying to vote yes. And it was like 79% or something, like 75%, 75, 79 said no. And it was like, and to see something like that, and even the leader of the country just kind of, he resigned his position now, but it just shows that no longer are people complying and listening to what they're told to do. They're no more, because they've done so many things around the world, people are conscious of it. But I think a lot of the times as well, people are watching others. So it's not a case of that you're flying the flag, do what I'm doing. They just see, hey, this guy is calm. This guy is this girl is this, when you go into your house, people go, yeah, I love this. I feel way better. I mean, we know that. We go into some people's house and it's like cluttered, and it's like, and you're just kind of like, you feel icky. And then you go into some other people's place and you just like, it's like you've gone into an energy field, and it just feels fantastic. And I think just by doing is how we actually do the ripple effect.
Exactly. We have to set the example. We just have to leave our those coward behaviors, and trying to blend in with the masses. And we are called to have our own hero's journey. And when we hide into the majority, or where we think the majority thinks, which is many times it's not even the majority, but it's just psychological warfare, from social engineer and from the elites, But even if it were true, and I don't think it's true, we should not comply with what the majority thinks or does. We are sovereign beings, and we have to set an example, and we are here to do that. Because unless we become sovereign, we are not ready for the new earth. We are not ready for the new stage of development here on this earth. We have to repeat. This is like a school, we have to repeat course, and we have to repeat the year, because we have not learned the lessons, and we have to get more mature and stop acting as children. Because so many times it looks like we are just children in just playing, We have to realize that time is gone. We have to mature, we have to grow up, and we have to decide on our own paths and follow through, because what is waiting for us on the other end is magnificent, but we will never know until we just go all the way.
Your book, then, The 7 Levels of Wisdom. So what, you might just let people know what exactly you're covering in that.
Well, I talk a lot about this, how you go from one level to another. And we could say that of course, in the book, I go more into depth with every level. But just to give an idea, there are 3 tiers of development. One will be the pre-conventional, and this is for people that have not gone into society yet. Then will be the conventional level, which is where the majority of people are in our Western societies. And this is where you have rules for people, and people follow the rules to the T. And you have one single paradigm that everybody follows. And you use only your rational mind, and you are identified with your ego. And this is where most people are. Just the maximum aspiration is to become an achiever. And this is what we have been educated for. And this is what the whole media and marketing and social media tells us to do and to become. But they don't realize, most of the people don't realize that there are a post-conventional tier, which is where you start questioning what you have received as education, when you start questioning the paradigm, and you realize that there is not one single paradigm, there are many. And depending on the filter or the glasses you use, the lenses you put, then you see the world very differently. You see yourself very differently. You have very different moral codes, and you make very different decisions. And it is as you expand those lenses, because you keep growing and growing, then your world expands, and the way you look at everything becomes very different. So your truth becomes expansive, and you keep revising your map instead of marrying a map and saying, this is my map, these are my beliefs, and I'm not going to change anything. If you do that, then you don't allow yourself to continue the whole ladder of development until you go to the last level, which is unitive, and at that level you are able to see the beauty of everything as it is, without you needing any change, without you judging or criticizing others. You are fully in the present, and you live in a state of inner peace and flow, because you know that whatever is happening is for your best interest, and you don't try to change anyone or meddle with anyone, because they are doing what they have to do at their level. So I think it's very promising to continue our development instead of become complacent with what we already are, realizing that there are tools, there is knowledge to continue our wisdom and to continue expanding our views of the world and the views we have of ourselves, becoming more whole, I would say, and more fulfilled. And this is possible. But of course, we have to become aware of it, and we have to be willing to put the work, because it's not the easiest path, but it is a very rewarding one.
Beautiful. And just finally, Monica, like meditation, because I heard you talk about loving kindness meditation. You might just kind of finish on that. What about that?
Well, I think meditation is a must. It's not a luxury anymore. I think it's not a panacea, but it's a very crucial part in our development, because we need to quieten our minds. Our minds are like cricket cages, or I call it the radio, they're always we always have the radio on, and it's so uncomfortable, because it's always those stories that we are telling ourselves, about others, about the future, about the past, never stops. So if you don't meditate, you don't have the tools, you don't have the strategies to silence your mind. And if you don't silence your mind, then you cannot hear your inner guidance. And we are looking for guidance outside. We are looking for external things to fill our vacuum inside. And it doesn't work that way. We have our inner guidance. We just cannot hear it, because our mind is constantly talking. It's this continuous chatter going on. So meditation is really the best instrument I have found to at least turn down the radio for a while and listen, contemplate, be here now without any story. And then you realize that you have everything that you need. You don't need anything that you don't have right now. And that is the passport to inner peace. And this is what we are all looking for, inner peace and contentment. So, yeah, I think meditation is a crucial path to go there.
Beautiful. I think I have the title now, The Passport to Inner Peace. Love it. So you might let people know, Monica, how they can find you.
Well, on my website, they can find everything. Is MonicaEsgueva.com. So I will spell that MonicaEsgueva.com. And then they can find me on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter, LinkedIn, everything, except for Facebook.
I'll make sure I put the links both on the end of the video. Thank you very much, Monica.
Thank you, Roy.
So that's all for the meditation podcast. Be sure to share with your friends and make a comment. As long as they're not nasty, even if you don't agree with what we say, I always leave them up because I like a discussion and it helps the algorithm. So be sure to give us a thumbs up, a 5-star rating. And until next week, take care.